It's going. We are live.
All right. All right. Well, we're live. So welcome whoever's on here or going to come on here in the near to distant future. I'm Dr. Scott Gam, and here with Dr. Amy, and we'll get started here in a little bit, but we'll just kind of do a little catch up until we get the viewers engaged here, Amy. So, so you're in beautiful Sedona, Arizona today?
I am. I already did my morning run and hike and checked on my veggie garden, and gorgeous weather. I can't complain at all. Really
so you guys
pretty out.
recently transitioned up there from Phoenix. So for some of the people on here, they're Northeast Iowa people, and I know you're an Iowa girl. Where are you from in Iowa originally?
From Cedar Rapids. So
Cedar Rapids?
Yeah. Born there and just lived there for the very first 4 years of my life, and went back and visited a few times, and I have family in Belle Plaine, Iowa, really small farm town, and some in Cedar Rapids. So yeah.
So that's where Heather is right around there from too. So yeah, she's from Keystone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I caused a lot. You know what? I caused a lot of damage by the time I was 4 years old, anyway. So I was almost remembered by that age. You know, much less of my life. So then you made your way out to Arizona for college and stuff, right?
Actually, I started. I actually moved here and went to elementary school here, and then junior high, high school, then college at Arizona State University, and then left to study abroad in France, and then came back, and then left for Delaware to go to grad school and get my doctorate. So,
yeah, we were reading your bio earlier, and we both had the same conclusion that we haven't done much with our life by comparison. That's what it feels. So, I want to get into some of kind of the extreme nature of what you've done, because I do think that it sets up a reference point for how the breath work that you do is able you to kind of accomplish so much with your life. And so, kind of give the viewers a little background story, and I'll let you kind of take off on it too, but you've run 40 marathons, 10 ultra marathons, and 2 of them then have been over 100 miles. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, I know, crazy.
it's a little intense, I mean, most people don't know anyone or have ever talked to anyone who's ever done that. So let's kind of start with that, just because I think it's such a really unique feat of running 100 miles. Most people, by the time they get out of a car ride of 100 miles, it takes 80 minutes. If you're using it, they're tired, they're stiff, they're sore. So running it at running it leads to a lot more different mindset, if you will. So can you describe the nature of what it takes to even get into that kind of space? Because I want to bring that back into breath work and working with stress as we kind of go through this today.
Yeah, so I originally got started running as a type of way to de-stress. I was going through a lot of bad stuff at a certain point when I was just finishing up my doctorate degree, and I needed something to calm me down. And at that point, I didn't have breath work. And so I started running, and I could get into this rhythm, and I just felt my body calm down. My mind calmed down. I got into this steady space of running where I could just go, and I started noticing that I could have conversations while I was running if I got to the point where I stopped huffing and puffing. And at that point, I didn't realize it was because my nervous system had calmed down, and my body was functioning at a higher level, but it was at a level that it could handle. And so once I started doing it, and I started on a treadmill, I started walking 1 mile, jogging 1 mile. And at the time, I didn't have anything in my house except a treadmill and a TV that someone gave me. And so I was watching The Biggest Loser when it was popular at that time. So I was like, I can't sit here and just sit on the ground and watch Biggest Loser, so I will walk and jog on the treadmill while I watch it. I was very motivated, so I would do it for an hour. And then I gradually worked up to being able to run that full hour, and I finally got to 6 miles in that hour. And then I started looking at, okay, I'll do a half marathon and just see how that goes. And I hated it, hated every bit of it. I was like, There are people all around me. There's 30,000 runners here. I couldn't stand it. And I finished, well, actually around mile 10, I see this older gentleman, probably in his 60s, 70s, pass me up. And I made a pact with myself at that point. I will not complain anymore. I was like, this older man who was heavy set passed me on this race. And I said, okay, stop whining, get to the finish line. And I did. And some friends were there with a dozen sugar cookies, which I demolished all 12 of them. It was horrible. And then that friend the next day called me up and she said, I have a request from you. I need you to say yes to something. And I said, okay, well, what is it? And she's like, I can't tell you. I just need your yes. And I'm like, I don't do that. I'm a person of my word. That's something I take very, very seriously. I want to help you, but I need to know what it is so I can say yes. And she said, it's just something you need to say yes to. And I said, okay, this is your one chance. I said, okay, I'll do it, whatever it is you said. And she said, well, great. You have 6 months to train. I signed you up for the San Diego full marathon. I was like, what? And she said, my partner needed some motivation. She's going to do the half. I need you to do the full. I was like, why didn't you sign me up for the half? And she's like, because you can do the full. So that basically started everything. And I just got crazier after that. So I trained, that's when I gave up sugar, sweets, dairy, you name it. I cut it all out. I was like, I got to figure out something because I was miserable through the half marathon. I got to find a way to get through a full marathon now. And so I had several goals to finish the marathon, try to do it running the whole way, try to get under 5 hours. And so 6 months later, I get to the San Diego Marathon. I've trained better and I finished it in 3:50, didn't stop. I was high as a kite, like someone had just given me a whole shot of caffeine. I was jumping all over at the end of it. I was like, this is the best experience ever. And so things shifted quite a bit. And so I was only 10 minutes short of qualifying for Boston. So then I signed up for another marathon a month and a half later in San Francisco. I don't recommend doing a San Francisco marathon to qualify for Boston because there are hills that go like this, which I learned my lesson. And then after that, it was a matter of, okay, let's just start challenging myself. And so I started doing more marathons more frequently. And then it came to the point where I wanted to do an Ironman. And I was like, why not? And so I signed up for an Ironman. And while I was training for that, I did my first ultra marathon, a 50K. And it was in the mountains. And I realized, okay, well, when you do stuff in the mountains, there are times where the incline is so steep that you have to walk up it. You can't run up it. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I slowed down to climb. It allows me to catch my breath in a different way. And then I could run the downhills. And it felt like I was a little kid again because I'm out in nature. I'm seeing things. It was a completely different experience than on the road. And so I decided to do something very crazy, as if that wasn't all crazy enough as is. And at as I was doing the Ironman, I heard about this race called Across the Years. And so what it is it's a 24-hour race, and it's a 1 mile loop on like a gravel track, and you see how far you can go in 24 hours. And since I had started running, I'd been curious. I wonder how far I could go, and I wonder if I could do 100 miles in less than 24 hours. And so at that point, I figured it's 5 weeks to the day after, or close to it, after the Ironman. I'll be training for 17 hours worth of activity. Why not try a 100-mile race after that? So that's what I did.
No point
why not?
Enough like that, you know? It's like, oh, you did 17 hours. I might do 24 hours. How far could I go?
Right, right. And what's funny is
that's legitimate.
And my training somehow training for a triathlon now equates to running 100 miles, which it doesn't. In my head, I was like, why not try it? So my long run before the 100 miles was in January, doing that first 50 miles, or February. And then my other long run was the 26 miles of the Ironman. And then I had 5 weeks to recover and figure out how to run for 24 hours straight. And so that was hard. And the other reason I wanted to do that one as my first 100 miler is because it's in a safe situation. I didn't want to do a trail race because on trail races, there's 8 to 15 miles between aid stations. A lot can happen when you're in the mountains for 15 miles. And so with this, you have an aid station every half mile. And you're going throughout the night. So it was a very protective situation. It's more challenging mentally because the monotony of it, most people won't do these types of races because the monotony of it is so horrible. I mean, you have to be so mentally strong to be able to do a loop a mile loop over and over and over for 24 hours. But the kicker is every 4 hours, they change the direction of the loop. So you do get a little bit of a scenery change. But it's very mind numbing. And so, I mean, you're going throughout the night and you get so tired. I remember my prize was going a little bit off trail to the bathroom. So they had the typical porta-johns that all races have. But at this facility, there was like an actual go inside and sit on a toilet type of place. And the special beauty of it was warmer there because outside it was 30-some degrees. Going inside to use the bathroom was absolutely like the most cherishing thing about the race.
That's gotta start to become a stretch of your mind when using a porta potty that's warmer than the outside. That's pretty miserable conditions. That's like Navy SEAL type of training. So
it kind of felt like that. And the other problem is you go to sit down to do your business and you would just lean over and start to fall asleep. And you're like, okay, you have a strategy. I'm going to sit, go quickly, then pop back up because otherwise you'll just fall asleep. And I didn't stop the whole entire time. Wow. And I knew at midnight, so the new year, I knew at that point I was going to make it 100 miles within the 24-hour mark. I knew I could walk the rest of it and still make it if I needed to. I continued jogging and you would eat as you're going. Every couple miles you would grab some food and eat and start going. And you develop a mental strength and you realize to get through something that seems unachievable, break it down. And it's not just break it down to little things, but break it down and celebrate those little things. Because as soon as you celebrate that little achievement, guess what? You get certain endorphins and you get the motion behind it. It spurs you on to the next thing. So I played mental games with myself the whole night. I made myself a promise I would get this tattoo if I made it to 100 miles, but if I made it to only 99 miles, I wouldn't get this tattoo to commemorate it. And then at the very end, there's a little game where I love peanut butter on bananas. I couldn't have any of that until I made it to 100 miles. And so as soon as I hit 100 miles, around 22 hours and 38 minutes, I kept going because I just lathered a banana with peanut butter and I kept going and I ate and just kept going. I was like, how many more laps can I do? So that was the first time.
Would you say that was one of the breakthroughs? I mean, because what you do is these days for helping people heal is you teach breath. It's one breath at a time, right? And so would you say that the hardest breakthroughs typically come when we stop thinking, right? It's meaning that you just go numb from exhaustion or from emotional pain. It's like that breakdown where the rubber band just literally snaps. And you kind of like forced yourself into that state for an extended hours upon time, or I don't think I've ever run more than an hour straight, and you did 23 more hours of that. So would you say that began to help you understand how to help people break it down into those little goals so they can begin to build over time?
It helped me, yes, definitely helps with that. And it helps you develop empathy. So many people teach absolutely wonderful things out there. And there are so many different ways of learning. But what we don't often realize is we need those rewards for ourselves. Humans are very much a reward-based species. And if we can have that little bit of encouragement where we get a little bit of help or support, it sends us through the roof to achieve things we never even thought possible. And that helps us build that confidence and control of our own selves. And so that's part of what I teach with this breath work is when you're learning what I like you to teach, I break it down in little bits and I say, we're not going to learn the whole scope of it right now. We're going to learn just a tiny bit because I want you to have success and I'm going to celebrate like I just won the Boston Marathon with you because it is that important to me. And I know how hard it is to change the way you breathe because I didn't breathe this way before and I had to change everything about my life. I used to cry daily because I couldn't figure out what the hell am I going through and what is it that I'm finding out about myself. All of a sudden I can run faster. I don't have pain, all these things that I could accomplish that I couldn't before, but I didn't know how to explain it and teach it. And so I started breaking it down, and that's where I felt more success is I took this training and it's like, okay, what did I do to get to 100 miles? Okay, that's what I need to do for other people, help them get success, to help them change their body. And as they have those successes, they learn they have control. They learn they can control. They can possibly get out of so many orthopedic surgeries. They can get out of the stress and anxiety. They can get their sleep back. They can get their mobility back. I don't stretch anymore because I don't need to because my nervous system is calmed down.
Okay, I want to pause you right there. We're going to go back into that because you jumped ahead about 20 minutes here. What you just said there is so profound, okay, is that most people have been mentally trained, okay, that when something breaks down, it's irreparable. Okay, meaning that if they have a chronic pain, if they have a dysfunction, if they have something when they do exercise doesn't work right, or their flexibility has become so restrictive, they have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, whatever that happens to look like, say what you just said a little bit differently, if you don't mind, that people can begin to understand that they, through breathing and controlling their nervous system, can actually begin to heal their body in totality.
Right. So what I work with, it's not breathing alone. There are many types of breathing out there that do wondrous things to all of us and help us heal and do things that we didn't before. But when you take the type of breathing that I teach and you combine it with changing how you position your rib cage and your body, those two combined with you developing a sense of relaxation to change your nervous system, all of a sudden your body functions completely differently. You gain mobility that you didn't have before, that you thought you lost, that you thought you would never gain again. Your bones go back into positions that you didn't think was possible. And all of a sudden, things that were bone on bone and impinging, all of a sudden, they have space again to move freely and you're not pinching. Is the bone on bone still there? Yes. But guess what? You don't have the pain or mobility restrictions and you can do whatever you want in your life again. Wow. And I've done this with countless people, but it takes time. Right?
You create a gap through the breath. So that's such an important concept, is that most people don't understand because they've all done it, but they probably haven't put a tremendous amount of thought into it. Meaning that everybody has become stressed out at some point in time and innately and when they finally breathe, it just innately happens. The stress builds up to a certain point, they breathe and then they calm down, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to say is learning how to do that very consciously and actually learning how to breathe, you can just begin to control that on your own and keep yourself calm, relaxed, and functioning.
Yes, because along with the breath, you're learning to sense aspects of your body that you couldn't before. And when you start to learn how to sense, like, I can control the position of my sternum or breastbone, whatever you want to call it. I can control that. And if I can control that, I know that affects my thumb and my toe and anything in between. And if I can control this, and initially when I teach people, I use your breath to learn how to sense it and to sense its position. Then once you can sense it, you can actually start to move it and control it without having to do the breathing at the same time. I still encourage the breathing because you get a deeper sense and a deeper sense of relaxing and contracting muscles. But when you need it in a situation where you can't, isolate to breathe in this way, you can still learn how to control, okay, I just dropped my ribs down on this side and I felt my shoulder drop down. I relaxed my armpit, my shoulder dropped down, it's no longer hiking. So now when I go to lift, I can lift my arm without it going up like this. But a lot of people, when they lift things, they initiate from here and then come up like this. And they don't even know that their shoulders are high, or they find that they're high, but they can't drop them. Well, they have to learn the sternum has to be down, the ribs have to be down. Once those drop down, then the shoulder gets permission. And then you start learning about certain muscles that can deactivate, and then other ones that activate, and you can move normally and have all your range of motion, whatever you want to do. So it's a process of learning how to use your breathing to gain a sense of your body that you've lost. Once you gain that sense of your body, you're gaining control, and you can control at any time. And the beauty of it is this is how you can get out of major orthopedic surgeries. Done this with disc herniations, acute ACL tears, rotator cuff tears, where these people were scheduled for surgery, got them out of the surgery, even though they still had the tear. Because what happens is when you get injured, your body, we all have this. You have the inflammatory response that comes in to try to take care of the inflammatory situation. But there is another thing that happens, a neuroprotective response, okay? And initially that is needed to guard that area. So, and I can tell a little story about it in a second, but that response is needed to guard that area. Once that area is protected by your muscle kind of splinting that area, ideally we want the muscles to start to let go so you can start using that area again. But that doesn't happen. If you think about anyone listening, think about the time that you got injured. That when you injure it, you typically hold it and you keep it guarded. You're afraid to move it.
Totally. Yeah.
That fear keeps that neuroprotective response going. The other thing that happens is we have a lot of stressors in our life. Those stressors already put us at close to a threshold of our limit of fight or flight. When you get injured, it puts you at that threshold or even more. And so what happens is your neuroprotective response is there because of the injury, plus you have all these other stressors that have added up that keep that neuroprotective response there.
Your cortisol is increased, your body's stuck in the sympathetic, absolutely. Yep.
And so what happens is you don't know how to get out of it because you also have this fear of, I'm injured, if I do anything, it's gonna be a problem. Absolutely. So with the breath work, you can calm your fight or flight system down so you mitigate and lessen that neuroprotective response so you don't hurt so bad. So for instance, this has just happened on Saturday. I was out running a trail in the mountains, and I landed on one of the rocks, and it was unstable rock, and it turned and my ankle went sideways. And so I knew I sprained my ankle immediately. And so I stopped and I was like, okay, I could just feel it, pain throbbing, all that. And so I just calmed myself down. I did the breath work, just standing. And then I was like, okay, I'm calming myself down, teaching myself, do not go into protective mode because I'm a couple miles away from home. And so I started breathing, and then I started walking while I was breathing. And so what I'm doing is giving my body permission to use the muscles that allow my ankle to go up and down to do a normal walk. And I'm saying all the other muscles that would normally guard me and lock me up, I'm telling them, no, I'm just focusing on coaching myself. This is just let my ankle go. And soon the pain started going away because the right muscles started working. The other muscles are like, okay, we don't need to be working. Soon I was jogging and I ran the rest of the way. When I got back, I was walking pain-free. If I turned quickly, I could feel a little twinge, but I kept breathing. I kept working on it. I've been running every day since then, no issue. And I could tell that day it was a little bit swollen, but you train your body.
Right. You know, I had a time when I was watching the NBA Finals, and it was the Bulls against the Jazz many years ago. And John Stockton rolled his ankle. And at the time, the Utah Jazz had a chiropractor as their primary healthcare physician. It was literally this guy was just on the sideline. He could adjust people. And the sprain was horrendous. And John Stockton goes off to the side, and they show the chiropractor go, and Justin said it. Hey guys, and it went from like one of the worst sprains you'd ever seen. And he went back and they taped it up and he went out and he finished the game without a limp. And it just opened my eyes to the possibility, like you just said, that we don't have to be limited by our past. I mean, that something can happen, and maybe it's through breath work or an outside intervention or whatever that happens to look like, that allows you to change your physiology, which is what you did there. You consciously changed your physiology. That's an amazing gift that we all can do. Yeah.
Oh, everyone has the ability to do it. It's just meeting the right people who can teach you it, and that way you can absorb it and do it for yourself. Everyone's capable of doing it. As long as you can think and remember, totally capable. Doesn't matter your age. Doesn't matter.
I think that's such an important concept too, is that this is a learnable skill, whether you're teaching a young child how to do it. That's some of the things you see on YouTube is young children learning from how to meditate and how to breathe. And they go from having ADHD or even autism, and not that someone has to be on the spectrum or whatever to benefit from this, but they just learn how to breathe. And it calms them. They do better in school. They're better in health. They're just happier kids. You know, I mean, I think we're all just big kids now, so that we have to learn how to breathe again.
It's true. And what I talk to people about is when you were walking as a kid, you walked a certain way, you were free flowing. You don't walk the same way now. You have many stressors that have changed the way you walk. Are you capable of changing back to that way? You are, but you just need help. Most people have some type of difference in their walking pattern. Same thing happens with your breathing. Your breathing, when you start out as a toddler and you're a kid, you're roly-poly, that is a nice, ideal way of breathing. We lose that, and we've changed so much over the course of our life. If you look at pictures of toddlers, their belly is out, their ribs are down. They are breathing and expanding all of their lungs, and they are able to move. As adults, think about how we breathe. When we exhale, we suck our stomach in. We lift up our ribs to inhale. We have changed and shifted our breathing patterns. And so what I'm teaching people is how to get back into that childlike state again. So you have the mobility. You are back in a neutral position. Right. When I see kids and I'm treating them, it's because their breathing pattern has changed. And that's why they have issues.
Let's learn a little bit, or maybe even a lot, because what you just said there is vital, because we're in a crisis within our country within lack of breath. Okay, one, because we are bombarded with an emotional stress right now, like with COVID-19, that is just beyond anything we've ever experienced. So what we do when we're in the sympathetic, like you were saying, we breathe out of here. We breathe out of our upper chest and we stop breathing into our belly. And when I actually met you, I have some old rib injuries from when I really did a nasty wreck, almost like 20 years ago. And you looked at me and you said, well, you don't breathe right. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And you're like, you're breathing out of here and you're stuck here and we have to breathe down to here. And within a matter of it was like 20 minutes, and it's awkward. I'll be honest. When you first start doing your work, it's to literally to stop this moving. And actually you stop it, rather breathing out here, you stop this and you breathe all the way into the belly, as hopefully you'll explain how to do this correctly. I calmed down incredibly. And I couldn't believe how present I was able to get. And it's because we get stuck in the sympathetic nervous system as adults. And like you said, children don't breathe that way. Yeah,
they don't. And I love thinking about myself as a kid and how free I was. And it's like, we got to get back there. We emulate kids so much. Why not change one of our most vital things about us back to that kid-like state? And so we can be free again. So the stresses of our daily life don't hold us right here and don't hurt us when they don't need to, as long as we can just gain these skills again. So that's kind of where we're at. But
kids are so in the parasympathetic. They're just playful and fun, right? Yeah. And then when they fall, you look at a kid, they bounce back up, and you can say that they have more cartilage. They're like, whatever that is. But, we as adults, we are here and we fall and we don't get, and the older someone gets, the worse they breathe. And that's why they're subject to all these upper respiratory things, including COVID or pneumonia or whatever. And they're breathing out of here. And that's why the infection is getting stuck in here, and because they don't breathe.
Yeah, it totally is. I tell people it's not your age that's determining how you feel. It's how you breathe.
Right.
So many people need to know that is if you change your breathing and your body position at the same time, it's the combination of the two, you can change your whole world, your whole life, everything about you. And it's so incredibly powerful. It's a miracle to me, and everyone has this power. It's just learning.
It's so true. It's right there, learning how to calm down. And it's what happens when I give someone an upper cervical adjustment up in here, is you see them take this breath, and now it takes a very almost dramatic intensity into their nervous system to finally open them up to calm down. But that's not what we have access to all the time, right? But we do have access to a breath at any point in time. So how about we jump into this and you kind of start to show us what to do on
Absolutely. So I'm going to show you guys, we'll go over the basics, and I'm going to show you two different options. So I use straws to start off with people, and then I use balloons to really make an impact. And I'm going to just go through both of them quickly, and we can spend as much time as you want. So I just want to go over the basics first, and then we'll get started. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit so you can see a little bit more. Okay. Now, so what I tell people,
just on our side. Okay.
So what I tell people is, let's just practice sitting. When you're sitting, I want you to sit all the way back in your chair. No lumbar support, no pillow or anything. Let your low back settle into the chair. Let your butt kind of roll underneath you. And what that does is it sets you up to be able to relax. And then we want our feet planted firmly on the floor so that your heels are touching the floor. Knees relatively close together, whatever's comfortable with you. And if your feet can't touch the floor, put a platform, a book, a phone book, whatever, underneath your feet, just to get your knees at the level of your hips.
Okay.
And then as we're going to go through the breathing process, we want our belly button let go. We want our gut out. And the reason we're doing that is the more you suck in, the more you lift up the ribs. When you lift up your ribs, you're flaring out your lower ribs. You use your side abdominal less. And when you do that, you are not supporting your diaphragm. We want our ribs down and in position because that provides diaphragmatic support when our side abdominals are holding our ribs down. If you think about it, if all of you guys can do this, sit up really tall, stick your chest out, shoulders back. Now when you breathe in, you feel how you have to lift up your chest or your shoulders or something to get air in. That's not using your diaphragm. That's taking your rib cage, lifting your rib cage to create negative space for air to flow in. Instead, what we want, which is what I was showing you a couple of years ago, Scott, is if we get our ribs down, and our side abs can help do that. The side abs provide, it's called apposition. It's support against the diaphragmatic wall. So then when I inhale and I keep my ribs down, I actually feel a vacuum of air come in, and that's your diaphragm. So I'm not actually filling up my belly. I'm letting my diaphragm drop down. It creates negative space for air to be like a vacuum and sucked in. So when I do that, I'm not using all of these accessory muscles that are tight on those people. And it's difficult to do this when you're used to this posture and being rigid. And all of a sudden you have to use your upper traps, your back muscles, your intercostal muscles just to get air in, because the only way you know how is you have to create it. This is why so many people, as they get older, they get COPD and they get this barrel chested. They have used all these accessory muscles to lift up their ribs for decades upon decades. We breathe 12 to 18 times a minute. They're lifting their ribs up. They develop this barrel chest because they don't know how to use their diaphragm. And then they have to go on oxygen because they can't lift their chest up anymore. They can't lift the ribs up anymore. Wow. But I've worked with them, and you teach them, okay, let's let all of this let go. Let's learn how to drop the ribs down. But guess what? The gatekeeper is your belly button. If you keep sucking that belly button in, you can't drop your ribs down. So you have to let the side abs kick in first to drop the ribs down. Once you know how to do that, then you can work on your rectus muscles and your belly button muscles. But before that, you have to get the ribs in place. Otherwise, you're not going to use your diaphragm as efficiently. And we know that the diaphragm, once you're using it, you stimulate your vagus nerve, which calms you down into parasympathetic relaxation. But this is why I say we do it all wrong. This is why toddlers have it right. Look at pictures of toddlers. I have a client who has a photo of a toddler, and I said, look, their belly is out, their ribs are down. Their ribs are in the place where they need to breathe so that they have the mobility. As soon as we start doing this perfect posture that we have been taught for performing arts, athletes, military, school, anything, your breathing pattern changes. And this is how you can help athletes too. You get them to hold their wrists down, all of a sudden they're going to breathe differently. You can run faster for longer periods of time. That's how I've qualified for Boston several times. I didn't do any other training. I just learned how to do this. And so this is how you get people out of surgery. You get them to get their rib cage into position, calm it down, muscles start to release. So here's another thing to focus on. If you sit up like this, go ahead and do that right now. Anyone who's listening, sit up like that. What did you feel in your low back? Did you feel how as soon as we did this, guess what? You just hinged off of your low back. You feel your low back muscles tighten. Absolutely. Now imagine do that all the time. Now it's not a puzzle why we have low back pain in this world, why it's such a problem. If we're constantly going like this, and think about it, we're always taught to squat, to bend, and when we're taught to do that, we're taught keep your back straight and bend and keep it straight and squat. Guess what? I'm using my back muscles to do that all the time. Instead, if I go into neutral or even round out, all of a sudden I now use my legs. My back doesn't hurt. And so as soon as we do this, we start hinging off our back and we become back dominant. So instead, this is why I teach people as they're doing the breathing, allow your low back to relax into a chair. First thing we got to do is get that to turn off. Let your belly button go so that your ribs can drop down. Step one to getting yourself to use your diaphragm. Then what we're going to do, we'll go through just 4 steps right now, just to make it basic before we get more complicated. And we're going to breathe in through the nose is step 1. Pause just a second for step 2. Step 3 is blowing out through the mouth, straw or balloon. And then step 4 is hold your breath and count to 3. Okay. As we do this, and we're just going to do this in a rhythm, I'll demonstrate for a second first, and then we can go through it. So I'm going to just put the straw in my mouth, not between my teeth. I don't want to engage my jaw muscles because most of us have too tight jaw muscles as is. But we're going to put it between our lips. And then I'm going to demonstrate. So okay, awesome. So okay, so I'm going to coach you guys through it. So first, sit all the way back in the chair. Allow your low back to relax. Let your belly
back on the chair. So
okay. If you have no back in your chair, still sit and allow your tailbone to roll under you a little bit. It's going to feel weird, but allow your tailbone to roll under and relax your back. There you go. And then let your belly out. Most people, even athletes, hate to let their belly out. Guess what? We all have guts because you know what? We have organs there. And one of the things that it can help people who have digestive issues is letting their gut out and stop sucking it in so much and causing pressure on those organs. So let the belly out.
It's a self-conscious thing versus just allowing your body to relax.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is part of developing that body sense again. I talked about being present in your body. Learning all this is so helpful. So now we'll put a straw in your mouth if you have one. And then we're going to put one hand on the chest, other hand on the belly. And then what we're going to do, I'll coach you through the breathing. I'm not going to use the straw because I'm going to be talking.
Sure.
And so we're going to start by just breathing in through your nose. Pause and blow out through your mouth or straw and blow. Then hold. 2, 3. Think gentle breath in your nose, directing it to your throat and nowhere else. Pause. Now blow out through your mouth, letting your chest drop away from your hand. Let your belly spill out into your other hand. And hold your breath. 2, 3. Think gentle breath in your nose, thinking about it vacuuming and sucking into your throat. Pause and blow out. Drop your chest away from your hand. Feel your sternum and breastbone melting. Feel your belly spilling out into your other hand as your low back relaxes into the chair. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat, keeping your shoulders down and relaxed. Pause and blow out. Feel your breastbone melting away from your hand as you exhale. Feel your pecs and armpits relaxing, allowing your belly to spill out. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat, keeping your air going just to your throat. Pause and blow out. Feel your sternum drop away, melting under your hand, getting away from your shirt. Your belly spills out, allowing your ribs to drop down. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat. Pause and blow out. Feel your chest drop down and in. Feel your ribs drop down and belly comes out. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat, filling your throat with air. Pause and blow out. Feel your sternum and breastbones melting away from your hand. Feel your ribs dropping down towards your hips as your low back and buttocks relax and you settle further into your chair. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat, keeping your shoulders down. Pause and blow out. Feel the chest drop down, the ribs drop down as your armpits relax. Your belly spills out and your thighs let go. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat, keeping your tongue to the roof of your mouth now. Pause and blow out through that straw, allowing your tongue to move out of position. Your chest drops down. Your belly spills out as your ribs drop down into neutral. Hold. 2, 3. Gentle breath in your nose to your throat. Put your tongue back to the roof of your mouth. Pause and blow out. Feel your chest drop away from your hand. Feel your ribs melting down as your armpits relax. Feel your belly spilling out as your butt and low back settle further into that chair. Hold. 2, 3, and take a break. So that's how I start people. And as you go through that, you'll start to feel more and more of your body relax, and you start to gain more and more sense of what it means for those muscles to stop contracting.
It's amazing the awareness that happens in that short amount of time. And I mean, how deeply you can breathe and actually just feel really feel your throat, which then happens to be where the vagus nerve comes out, which puts you in the sympathetic, which you calm down. And all of a sudden, when I felt my sternum drop, actually really drop, I was like, like a little kid, I was like, I'm relaxed. Okay, well, slow down.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Mm-hmm. That's what people have lost is this control right here. And we know this is the center of everything, the center of your soul, the center of everything, and all different types of energy healing and modern day medicine. This is everything. And I'm so excited that you could actually feel that. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, it may help you. It gave me a reference point a couple of years ago. And I remember it happened then too. It was like, it does take work and awareness and the consistency, but then as long as you just stay with it, you start to open up different fields the longer you do it too. And it's kind of interesting too, because you realize how much you're using just the upper oxygen, because when you first get into the lower oxygen, if you will, you start breathing out the carbon dioxide, the old stuck stuff in there, and it's almost painful and very uncomfortable, and you get a little panicky, and it's like, I'm just breathing. Yeah, so fascinating. And I think one of the other things you said right off the bat that's really important too is to keep your jaw really relaxed when you do it. Because we tend to like want to go into that sympathetic and clench down again, to hold it, just being very present and just breathing into the throat. That's fascinating. Very cool.
Yeah, we want to try hard. So we want to do a good job. And this is, the more relaxed you are, the better you do at it. And it's something that messes with our psyche, because we're not used to being relaxed to do a better job, or to do it stronger is being relaxed. It messes with you.
Yeah, and I think that this is one of the things that like lots of people have been in isolation, and we have been stuck in a chronic sympathetic state. And it's so hard, we choose to make it so hard to actually calm ourselves down. This is a wonderful technique that I think we can maybe even market on when to do this, so people can go back and reference it and have almost a little training built in there. That would be great, because that was fascinating.
Yeah, and then I'll just mention real quick that you can switch to a balloon. And I do that later. And so
I didn't have a balloon, so I had one of these gloves. So I was going to do like the old MASH, I think. Wasn't that what they blew the balloon up? So I don't know if I can do it or not.
Perfect. So when I do in a balloon, that will help you. And this is after you've learned how to calm yourself. When you want to learn how to start feeling the side abdominal muscles pull your ribs down, the balloon is a great addition to it. And so, because you know how we were just talking about the jaw, with the straw, you want to make an O shape, and you're not biting down on it. Same thing with the balloon. I put the balloon between my lips, but not my teeth. My teeth are not touching it at all. Okay. And so when I'm doing this, I'm going to scoot it closer and move this so you guys might be able to see. So I'm not going to move my ribs. So when I breathe in and out, you won't see my hand move. So I'm going to do the balloon here a second. So here we go. So I was not lifting up my ribs to get air in. I was letting my diaphragm drop down so air could go into my throat and then disperse to all of my lungs. So there's a difference. And so the balloon will help you learn how to sense your side abs to keep your ribs in place so that you use your diaphragm more. It does add another element, because some people are not comfortable with the balloon, so there's a whole comfort level. So that's why I usually start people with a straw first, just to help them calm down. And then once they're calm, we can introduce the balloon. We can then have them learn how to sense their side abdominal muscles, which will give them even more control. And then the one other thing that I do with the balloon is I poke holes in the bottom. I'll poke 6 holes, so three things all the way through the balloon, and it becomes a never-ending balloon. So you don't have to worry about it popping or anything like that. As you're blowing it up, air seeps out, it becomes a never-ending little tool you can use. So you could probably, with your rubber glove, poke a hole in each of the fingers.
Nice.
And you can blow that up, and you have, like, the fingers will emit air, so you never have to worry about it popping on you.
And I'll be highly entertained for days on end too. So that's the bonus.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's good skills. So how often should someone do this? Is it multiple times a day? Is it like before you go to bed, first thing in the morning? I mean, what have you seen with your clients that they get best results, if you will?
Yeah, so I recommend people do it 3 to 5 times a day. When you first wake up is a great time to do it, just to kind of make sure that you're working out any kinks from sleeping. You calm yourself down. Sometimes we have nightmares. Sometimes we slept in the wrong direction or whatever position. Do it for about 5 minutes. And then what I have you do is, if you can do it a couple times sitting up throughout your day. So sometimes people like to do it, right before lunch. Then maybe sometime in the mid-afternoon or after they get off work. or before dinner, and then do it again before bed, especially before bed. And the reason why is we want short periods of time, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. I don't want you doing it all day long, just maybe about 5 minutes, especially before bed, because stressors have added up throughout our day. And if we can do this right before bed, I mean, you can knock yourself out so quickly. You can feel the calm coming over you.
Wow.
And our body at night reflects what we are at during the daytime. So if we're ramped up like this, no wonder we can't sleep at night, because our body doesn't know how to turn off. But if we practice this and we break up our nervous system habits, all of a sudden our body learns how to turn off and we can sleep better.
That's fascinating. And I totally agree that when we're going through the day, we're stuck so much in the do mode, right? Of the mind going so fast, and all the energies in our arms and our legs. And then people go and try to sleep and their mind's still running and they have jumpy legs and they can't calm down, versus that ability to really just breathe. I think it's an incredible thing to do right before bed. And it does get you into that healing parasympathetic state consciously, that then your body goes, oh, it's sleep time. You just go sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is great.
You're welcome. Yeah. So, and what I'm doing for free sessions, if people want, I have a Facebook group called the Power Method Wellness Group.
Okay.
So I'm doing during the week, I'm doing just free little sessions for people, and they're about 12 minutes long, 15 minutes long, at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. People can join. I have it set as a private group just so I can monitor it and so it's not anything crazy. But people can do it, and I just go through this breathing, and I focus on certain things each time, so people can join in, even if they can't join us at time during those Facebook Live. They can watch the videos just to help them out.
Great. Yeah, we'll post that below so everyone can tap into that resource too. And we very much appreciate you coming on today and helping us out. And it's been great seeing you. And it's such a valuable thing that I think that it's breathing, but it's the single most important thing you ever do. It's the first thing that happens when you're born, and it's the last thing that happens before you die. And learning how to master it in between can lead to so much health, so much relaxation, so much ability to focus and be present and really get control, not just over your pain, but over the moment to moment stresses that pop up in the day. So,
yeah. Thank you, Scott, for having me on. I really appreciate your time, and you have so much care for your people and your friends and your clients, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Dr. Amy Novotny, we super appreciate you, and we'll post those links for everyone who wants to stay tuned with your work. It's fascinating work. Hopefully the world catches on and we live in a much less stressed out and more conscious environment moving forward through this whole journey. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day. Thanks.
You as well. All right. Bye-bye.